On a night that was supposed to be just another comedy roast, Jimmy Kimmel looked Donald Trump dead in the eyes and tore the mask off the most carefully guarded lie in American politics, exposing the president as a desperate fraud who built his entire empire on one filthy family secret. That Ivanka Trump, not Melania, gave birth to Barron in a hidden hospital room while lawyers scrambled to rewrite reality itself. The studio lights were hot and bright, like they always were on Jimmy Kimmel Live. The audience was laughing and chatting, expecting another regular night of jokes and celebrity talk. Then, the side door opened and Donald Trump walked in. No smile, no handshake, nothing. He marched straight toward the desk, eyes locked on Jimmy Kimmel. The second he sat down, he leaned forward and fired. "You're a failed comedian," Trump said, his voice loud and sharp. "Your whole career is built on cheap shots because real people never laughed at you." The laughter in the room died instantly. But Jimmy Kimmel didn't laugh it off. He didn't fire back with a joke. He just sat there, looking straight at Trump. The silence felt heavy. Then Kimmel spoke, calm and steady. "Tonight isn't about jokes. It's about truth." Trump raised an eyebrow like he was waiting for the usual comedy routine, but Kimmel kept going. "I've been preparing for this night for 3 months, Mr. President. I knew you were coming on, and I knew exactly what I wanted to say. So why don't you get comfortable?" Kimmel gestured to the big chair beside him. Trump gave a short, mocking laugh, but dropped into the seat anyway, arms crossed, still staring daggers. Jimmy didn't waste another second. He picked up a small remote and clicked it. The big screen behind them lit up with a document. Clear as day. Birth certificate. Mother, Ivanka Marie Trump. Father, Donald John Trump. Date and time matched Barron Trump's official birthday. The studio went dead quiet. A few people gasped. Someone in the back actually said, "Holy shit," loud enough for the mic to catch it. Trump shot up halfway out of his chair. "That's a forgery," he boomed. "Fake news! You're trying to hurt my family with this garbage." His face was red. The veins on his neck stood out. The audience was frozen, eyes bouncing between Trump and the giant screen. Kimmel stayed seated, completely still, letting the document speak for itself for a few more seconds. "Mr. President," Kimmel said, voice even, "this document was sent to me by a retired nurse who worked at the hospital the night Barron was born. She included proof she was on duty that exact day. Her ID badge scan, her shift log, and her employee records. She says she saw everything." Trump's eyes narrowed. He pointed a finger right at Kimmel. "You're a liar, Jimmy. This is the lowest thing I've ever seen on television." Kimmel didn't let the shock settle. He picked up the remote again and zoomed in tight on the birth certificate. The camera followed every word. "Right here," he said, pointing at the screen. "Mother, Ivanka Marie Trump. Time of birth, 3:17 a.m. Same exact date as the official story everyone's been told for years." The audience was completely silent now. You could hear a pin drop in the studio. Trump had enough. He suddenly reached over, grabbed the microphone off Kimmel's desk, and held it up like he was at a rally. "My family's privacy is being violated," he shouted, his voice booming through the speakers. "This is disgusting. You people have no shame." Then, he pulled out a folded document from inside his jacket and waved it at the camera. "This is Barron's real birth certificate, signed by his mother, Melania Trump, the real one, not this garbage you're showing." He slammed the paper down on the desk. Kimmel stayed calm, picked it up, and nodded to the control room. The big screen behind them split in two. On the left, the Ivanka document. On the right, Trump's Melania version. Then, Kimmel brought both signatures up side by side, huge and clear. "Take a look at these signatures," Kimmel said. "We had a forensics expert check them. The strokes don't match. Different pressure, different flow. There's a 12% difference in the handwriting analysis. They're not even close." The audience let out a loud collective gasp. Some people covered their mouths. Trump's face turned deep red. He jumped up from his chair, pointing straight at Kimmel. "You're a liar, Jimmy. "A total liar," he yelled. "Turn the cameras off right now. This is fake news and you know it. Shut it down." Security took a step forward, but Kimmel raised his hand and stayed seated. He looked Trump dead in the eyes for a second, then reached under the desk and hit play on a small audio recorder. A woman's voice came on, distorted and anonymous, but clear enough to understand every word. "I was working that night," the voice said. "I saw Ivanka Trump give birth in the VIP delivery room. Melania was kept in a separate waiting area the whole time. 2 hours later, Mr. Trump's lawyers came in and changed the hospital records. They told us what to write." The studio exploded with whispers and shocked sounds. Trump looked furious, his hands clenched into fists. He stepped closer to Kimmel like he wanted to grab the desk. "This is all made up," he shouted. "You're destroying my family on live television." Kimmel let the audio play a few more seconds before stopping it. He looked straight into the camera, then back at Trump. "You brought your document, Mr. President. We just showed the signatures don't match, and now you've heard from someone who was actually there. So tell us, which story is real?" The tension in the room was thick. No one was moving. Every eye was locked on the two men. Then Kimmel looked straight into the camera, his face serious. "We have someone who was actually inside that hospital the night Barron was born. For her safety, her face is blurred, and her voice has been changed, but she's joining us live right now." The giant screen behind them switched over. A woman appeared, her image hidden behind heavy digital blur. She sat straight in a simple chair, hands clasped tightly in her lap. When she began to speak, her voice came through slightly distorted but steady and strong. "I worked the night shift at that New York hospital," she started. "Ivanka Trump arrived at 3:07 a.m. She was already in labor. They rushed her straight into the VIP delivery room on the private floor. I saw the nurses and doctors moving fast around her. Melania Trump didn't appear until almost 9 o'clock that morning, just before the first press photos were taken. I was there the whole time. I saw it with my own eyes." The studio audience sat completely still. No one whispered, no one moved. Every person was locked on the screen. Kimmel stayed quiet, giving her space to continue without rushing. The nurse took a breath and went on. "I knew something was wrong, so I kept a copy of the real hospital log from that night. I hid it for years." She lifted a scanned document into view on her side of the video. The camera zoomed in tight. There it was, in clear black and white. "Patient in delivery room 7, Ivanka Marie Trump." The official public record that everyone had seen for years listed Melania's name instead. A loud wave of gasps rolled through the studio. Several people covered their mouths. One woman in the front row shook her head slowly, eyes wide. The shock was real and heavy in the air. Trump exploded out of his chair. He pointed aggressively at the screen. "This woman is a liar!" he shouted, voice booming across the studio. "She was fired from that hospital for stealing. She's making all this up for money and attention. Total fake news." The nurse didn't flinch. But before she could respond, Kimmel calmly raised his hand and turned toward Trump. "Actually, Mr. President, we checked that claim very carefully," Kimmel said. He clicked the remote. A new official document filled the entire big screen. Hospital personnel records with dates and signatures. These papers prove she worked her regular shifts for 4 more weeks after Barron was born. No firing, no theft charges. In fact, she received Employee of the Month 2 months before that night. The studio fell into absolute dead silence. Trump stood frozen, staring at the document. His mouth opened slightly, but nothing came out. 8 long, uncomfortable seconds ticked by, with the cameras rolling on his face the whole time. It was the first real moment of silence from him all night, and everyone felt it. The tension was so thick it was almost hard to breathe. The nurse's voice started to crack. Even with the blur, you could see her shoulders shake a little. She wiped at her eyes. "I heard one of Mr. Trump's lawyers talking to Ivanka right after the delivery," she continued, tears clear in her tone. "He told her, 'We have to keep this secret until your son grows up. This stays in the family, no matter what.' I wasn't supposed to hear it, but I did. I've carried that with me for years." Murmurs and shocked whispers spread through the audience. Some people looked angry, others stunned and disappointed. A few were shaking their heads. Trump's face had gone from bright red to a pale, tight expression. He slowly sat back down in his chair, jaw locked, but this time he had no quick comeback ready. His usual fire seemed momentarily knocked back. Kimmel looked directly at Trump, then turned back to the camera. "You just heard from a woman who put her name and reputation on the line tonight. She showed you the real hospital log. We showed you the employment records that prove she was never fired. So tell us, Mr. President, why would a retired nurse risk everything she has to lie about something this big on live television?" The entire studio felt like it was holding its breath. There were no jokes, no laughter, just the heavy weight of what everyone had just witnessed. Kimmel didn't give Trump any time to recover. He turned back to the camera and spoke clearly. "We're not done yet. There's someone else who was in that delivery room. For his safety, his face is also blurred, but he's joining us live. Doctor, are you there?" A new video feed appeared on the big screen. An older man sat in a dimly lit room, his face hidden behind the same digital blur. His voice was calm but firm when he started speaking. "Yes, I'm here. I was the attending physician that night. I delivered Barron Trump. The mother was Ivanka Trump. I signed the original medical records with her name. 2 hours later, Mr. Trump's lawyers came in and told me I had to change it. They made me sign Melania Trump's name on the official certificate instead. I didn't want to, but they made it very clear I had no choice." The studio audience reacted with loud murmurs and shocked gasps. Heads were shaking everywhere. Kimmel nodded slowly, letting the words sink in. The doctor continued. "I kept a scanned copy of the original draft record. I never threw it away." He held up a document on his screen. The camera zoomed in close. You could clearly see Ivanka's signature at the bottom, crossed out with a heavy line, and Melania's name written above it in different handwriting. The entire room seemed to freeze. Several people whispered, "Oh my God!" The image stayed on screen, impossible to ignore. Trump shot up from his chair like he'd been burned. He pointed straight at Kimmel, his hand shaking with anger. "You are destroying my family on live television," he yelled, voice cracking with rage. "This is a witch hunt. You're a disgrace." Kimmel looked him right in the eyes, his voice ice cold. "No, Mr. President. Your family destroyed the truth long ago." The words hit hard. For a split second, the studio was completely silent. Then Trump lost it. He stepped forward, face red, and jabbed his finger toward the control booth. "Turn the cameras off right now or I'm walking out. Shut this down. I'm not staying here for these lies." Security shifted nervously. The audience held their breath. Kimmel stayed seated, completely calm, and looked Trump dead in the face. "You can leave if you want, Mr. President, but the truth stays right here." The studio audience erupted in loud applause. The clapping rolled through the room like thunder. Trump stood there, breathing heavy, staring at Kimmel with pure fury. He didn't walk out. He slowly sat back down, but the damage was done. Everyone saw how close he came to storming off. Kimmel didn't miss a beat. He clicked the remote again. A new document filled the giant screen. An official independent forensics report with graphs and numbers. We had 3 separate handwriting experts analyze both signatures. Their conclusion is clear. There is a 98% probability that the Melania Trump signature on the official birth certificate is not authentic. It was forged. The numbers flashed big and red on the screen. 98%. The audience reacted with another wave of gasps and whispers. Trump shook his head, muttering under his breath, but the evidence kept stacking higher. Kimmel looked straight at the camera and then back at Trump. "We now have 2 eyewitnesses, hospital logs, crossed-out signatures, and a forensics report. All of it points the same way. So what's the real story here, Mr. President? Because right now, the American people are watching everything fall apart in real time." The tension in the studio was at a breaking point. No one was laughing. Every single person was locked in, waiting for what would happen next. Kimmel let the silence hang for a moment, the weight of everything they had just shown still pressing down on the studio. Then he turned slowly and looked straight into the camera, his voice steady and clear. "If this is fake, prove it right now," he said. "Take a public DNA test, you, Barron, and Ivanka. We can do it live on this show or at any lab you choose. Let the results speak for themselves." The audience reacted instantly. Some gasped, others leaned forward in their seats. The challenge felt like a bomb going off in the middle of the studio. Trump's eyes widened for a split second before his face twisted with anger. "That's a disgusting attack on my son," he exploded, slamming his hand on the desk. "You're sick, Jimmy. This is crossing every line. I will never put my family through that kind of humiliation just because you want ratings." His voice was loud and sharp, echoing through the studio. He stood halfway up again, pointing at Kimmel like he wanted to shut him down on the spot. The tension spiked so high you could almost feel the air crackle. Before Trump could keep going, the nurse's voice came back on the screen, shaky but determined. "There's something else I need to say," she said. "Barron has a very rare blood type, a B negative with a specific antigen marker. I saw it in the lab results that night. Melania Trump's blood type is O positive. She could never have passed that on to him, but Ivanka's blood type matches perfectly. It can only come from her." Kimmel didn't wait. He clicked the remote, and 3 medical documents appeared side by side on the giant screen. Public records from past checkups, Barron's rare blood type, Ivanka's matching profile, and Melania's completely different one. The comparison was impossible to argue with. Red arrows highlighted the genetic impossibility. The studio erupted in loud whispers and shocked sounds. People were pointing at the screen, shaking their heads. One woman in the front row actually whispered, "Jesus Christ," loud enough for the microphones to pick it up. Trump looked like he was about to lose control completely. His face was flushed dark red, and his hands were shaking as he gripped the edge of the desk. "This is the lowest thing any host has ever done," he said, his voice cracking with rage. "You're attacking a child. You're a disgusting human being, Jimmy. This is fake, all of it." For the first time all night, his usual confident bluster sounded broken. His breathing was heavy, and he kept glancing at the screen like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. The cameras caught every second of it, the sweat on his forehead, the way his jaw tightened. Kimmel stayed calm, never raising his voice. He looked Trump straight in the eyes, then turned back to the camera. "The longer you refuse, the louder the truth gets, Mr. President." The words landed heavy in the studio. The audience started clapping, not loud cheers, but a steady, serious applause that built through the room. Trump sat back down, breathing hard, staring at Kimmel with pure fury. No quick comeback this time, no loud denial, just silence and the heavy weight of everything that had just been laid out. Then Kimmel stood up slowly behind his desk. The studio lights felt even hotter now. He picked up the remote, and the giant screen behind him lit up with everything they had shown that night. 4 official documents side by side, 2 audio clips ready to play, the scanned hospital draft with Ivanka's crossed-out signature, and the independent forensics report in big red numbers, 98% fake. "Everything is right here," Kimmel said, his voice steady but serious. Hospital logs, employment records, 2 eyewitnesses who were in the room, blood type proof, and signature analysis. This isn't one mistake. This is a pattern. The audience sat in stunned silence. No one moved. Trump stared at the wall of evidence, his face tight and tired. For the first time all night, he looked like a man who knew he was cornered. Then Kimmel turned to the screen. "Nurse, doctor, are you both still with us?" The 2 video feeds appeared together. For the first time, they lowered the voice distortion just enough so their real tones came through. The nurse and the doctor looked straight forward. "We are ready to testify in court if we're called," the nurse said clearly. Everything we said tonight is true. The doctor nodded. I stand by every word. I delivered that baby. I was pressured to lie on official records. We are both willing to swear under oath. The studio exploded with loud gasps and murmurs. Several people started clapping. The applause grew louder, rolling through the room like a wave. Trump looked furious, shaking his head hard. "This is all lies," he shouted, standing up again. "These people are paid actors. You set this whole thing up to hurt me and my family. I have the best doctors." Kimmel cut him off instantly. He hit a button, and an old interview clip played on the screen. Trump's own voice filled the studio. "I have the best doctors, the best people. Nobody has better medical care than me." The clip ended. Kimmel pointed at the doctor on the screen. "That's the same doctor you just called a liar, Mr. President. The one who says he was forced to fake the birth certificate. Your own words versus his sworn statement." Trump's mouth opened, but nothing came out at first. His face was bright red, breathing fast. The whole studio watched him struggle. Then came the moment everyone would talk about for days. Trump leaned in close to Kimmel, eyes locked on him, and whispered into the microphone, voice low and cold, "You'll regret this." The mic caught every word. The audience heard it clearly. Kimmel didn't flinch. He looked Trump straight in the eyes and smiled calmly. "The only thing I regret, Mr. President, is waiting this long to tell the truth." The studio erupted in loud applause again. People stood up in some sections. Trump sat back down slowly, jaw clenched so tight the muscles showed. He had no more words. Kimmel turned to face the camera directly. The lights focused on him. The big screen still showed all the evidence behind him. His voice was slow and clear, every word hitting hard. "America, the challenge is on the table. Mr. President, will you take the test?" He let the question hang in the air for several long seconds. Then the studio lights began to dim. The screen faded to black. Only white text appeared in the center. "To be continued!" The audience kept clapping as the credits rolled. No one wanted to leave. No one could look away. What started as a regular late-night show had become one of the most explosive nights in television history. The truth was out there now, and the whole country was left waiting for an answer.